In the early 1930s, during the darkest days of the Great Depression, banks were failing, people were losing their homes, and desperation was spreading across America. But in the middle of the chaos, one man would rise to become the most wanted criminal in the country. He wasn't just a thief, he was bold, fearless, and shockingly clever. His crimes would terrify law enforcement while making him strangely popular among ordinary citizens who hated the banks that had taken everything from them. This man didn't wear a mask or hide in the shadows. Instead, he walked into banks in broad daylight, often smiling calmly as if nothing unusual was happening. Armed and confident, he and his gang would order everyone to stay quiet, quickly empty the cash drawers, and disappear before police even had time to react. Witnesses would later describe him as polite, even charming, sometimes reassuring frightened customers that he had no intention of harming them. But behind the calm demeanor was a man who had already chosen a life of crime long before his name became famous. Why? Years earlier, after a troubled youth and several arrests, he had spent time in prison where he met experienced criminals who would shape his future. Instead of leaving prison reformed, he left with a new plan and a network of dangerous allies. Soon after his release, a wave of daring bank robberies began spreading across the Midwest. The robberies were fast, organized, and incredibly successful. Police departments were embarrassed as the criminals seemed to vanish without a trace after each job. As the robberies continued, newspapers began printing stories about the mysterious gang leader responsible. His name slowly started appearing in headlines, and before long, the entire nation was talking about him. Law enforcement soon realized they were dealing with a criminal unlike any they had faced before. He constantly changed hideouts, moved across state lines, and relied on loyal accomplices who helped him evade capture again and again. At one point, authorities finally caught him and locked him inside what they believed was an escape-proof prison in Indiana. Guards were confident he would never get out, but they underestimated the man they had captured. One quiet morning, something unbelievable happened. Using nothing more than a wooden gun he had carved and painted black to look real, he tricked the guards into opening the cell doors. Terrified of what they believed was a real weapon, they followed his orders. Within minutes, he had locked them inside the prison and walked out the front door, a free man. The story exploded across newspapers. A criminal escaping prison with a fake gun sounded almost impossible, but it had really happened. The escape embarrassed authorities nationwide and turned the man into an even bigger legend. Now the federal government stepped in. The newly formed investigative agency, led by the determined director J. Edgar Hoover, declared the criminal public enemy #1. The hunt intensified. Agents tracked leads across multiple states, raided suspected hideouts, and questioned anyone who might know where the gang was hiding. Meanwhile, the robberies continued. Banks were looted, cars were stolen, and shootouts with police became more frequent. The criminal and his gang seemed unstoppable, but even the most careful fugitives eventually make mistakes. As pressure from authorities increased, members of the gang were captured or killed one by one. Safe houses were discovered, and the circle around their leader slowly tightened. Eventually, investigators received a critical tip from a woman connected to the criminal's social circle. She revealed where he might appear one evening in Chicago. Federal agents quickly organized a plan. They surrounded the area quietly, blending into the crowd, while waiting for their target to appear. As night fell, people gathered outside a movie theater, unaware that one of the most famous manhunts in American history was about to end. When the suspect finally walked out of the theater, agents confirmed his identity and moved in. But instead of surrendering, the man tried to escape through a nearby alley. Shots rang out. Moments later, the most wanted criminal in America lay dead on the pavement. Crowds gathered as news spread quickly through the city. Within hours, newspapers across the country printed the dramatic headline announcing the death of the nation's most notorious outlaw. The mysterious bank robber who had humiliated police, escaped prison with a fake gun, and robbed banks across the Midwest had finally been stopped. And the man whose name had terrified banks and fascinated the public for years was John Dillinger.